people, welcome to Remi's Fashion. My name is Remi Forde-hyde. On this channel, we upload pattern drafting and sewing tutorials every week. Please subscribe and put on your notification bell so that anytime I upload new tutorials, you will be the first to be notified. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to cut and sew a kaftan dress. Yes, we're going to be cutting and sewing a kaftan dress. We're also going to be embellishing the dress with our rhinestones. So if you would like to see the embellishment of the kaftan dress, watch this video till the end. So let's get started. Dresses are quick and they are so simple to make that you want to stock your closet with them. Measurements needed to cut this dress are as shown. Check out my video on how to take accurate measurements on the channel. I'll put the link in the description. The items you will need to cut our kaftan: you're going to need fabric. I have a crepe fabric here. This is what I'm going to use to cut my kaftan. And then you will need to have rulers. I have a long ruler here. And then I have my pattern master to draw in my lines. You will need a scissors after marking to cut out your kaftan dress. We also need a tailor's chalk to be able to mark in our vertical and horizontal points. We need a tape rule to transfer our measurements to our fabric. We also need pins to hold our fabrics, the front and the back, together after cutting out. And these are rhinestone templates. So these are the templates I'm going to be using to embellish our kaftan dress. So this kaftan dress is going to be free. I'm going to fold my fabric into 4, and I'll make sure that the width of my fabric is wide enough for the widest measurements. And my widest measurement is 16.75 after calculation. My hip is the widest part of my body, and my hip circumference measurement is 47 inches. And by the time I divide that by 4, I'm going to have 11.75 inches. I'm going to be adding ease of 4 inches to my dress because I want it to be roomy. You can add more if you want it to be a lot bigger, or you can add less if you want it to be fitted. It's your preference, whatever you prefer to do. This kaftan does not have a separate sleeve. The sleeve is attached to the dress. For you to have the sleeve length you require, you will have to take your measurement from your center back all the way to where you want the length of your sleeves to end. I will fold my kaftan into 4, and I will make sure that the width of my fabric is wide enough for my widest measurement. And my widest measurement is 16.75. So I'm going to approximate it to 17 inches. So you will need 2 to 3 yards of fabric. I'm using crepe fabric. I'm also going to embellish the front and sleeves of my kaftan with rhinestones. I got this design from the internet, and then I cut out the template and filled it with rhinestones. To know how many inches to put on fold, you take the widest part of your measurement. Mine is my hips, and that is 47 inches. I want to add 4 inches ease to my dress. I'm going to be folding my fabric into 4. So because I'm folding into 4 multiplied by 4 is going to give 16 inches. I'm going to add 47 plus 16 inches, and that's going to give me 63 inches. And then I will add 1 inch sewing allowance to each panel. And because I'm folding into 4, so 1 times 4 is going to give me 4. So 63 plus 4 is going to give me 67 inches. So I'm going to measure 67 inches. Okay? But I'm just going to approximate it to 17 inches. So I'm going to measure 70 inches, and then I will cut and put on fold. So now I'm going to fold my fabric, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. So I have folded my fabric into 4. So I folded into 2, and then I folded again into 4 after measuring out 70 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to have a starting point. I always like to have a starting point before I start any project. So now I'm going to draw out my starting point. So this is my starting point, and I'm going to be drawing all my vertical measurements from this point all the way down. I'm going to be using a length of 58 inches. So after drawing out my starting point, the first thing I'm going to do now is to draw out my vertical measurements. That is from my shoulder to my bust, shoulder to my waist, shoulder to my hips, and the length of my dress. So the length of my dress, I'm going to be using 58 inches. I will measure the length from my shoulder to my bust, which is 12 inches. I will mark 12 inches. From shoulder to my waist is 18 inches. I will mark. From shoulder to my hips is 24 inches. I will mark. I will go and mark the same measurements. I'll mark 12, 18, 24, and 58. 58 is the length of my dress. And then I will draw a horizontal line to connect my points. So that's my bust line. That's my waistline. And this is my hip line. And this is my dress length, 58 inches. And what I have left is just 1.5 inches. I'm going to use the 1.5 inches left to hem my dress. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to measure my shoulder measurement. Don't forget, the sleeve is attached to the dress. It is not detached, it's attached. So I'm going to be cutting the sleeve together with the dress. So when I took my measurement, I included my sleeve length to the shoulder. So I'm going to measure out my shoulder and sleeve measurement. And when I took my measurement, that measurement was 32 inches. And then when you divide 32 by 2, it's going to give me 16 inches. I will measure and mark 16 inches from my starting point. 16 inches will put me here. I'll mark. So that's my 16 inches. The next thing I will do is to measure out my neck width and my neck depth. I'm going to be using 4 inches by 4 inches. This dress is not going to have a zipper at the back. So whatever width and depth you make it such that it is wide enough to go through your head. So I'm going to measure 4 inches. This depends on what you want to use. I want to use 4 inches by 4 inches. So you decide what you want to use. I folded this into 4. I'm going to be cutting the front and the back together. I will now draw out the neckline. After doing that, I will mark 1.5 inches downwards for my shoulder sloping. The reason why we're sloping the shoulder is because our shoulders are not straight. So I'm going to be sloping 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to connect it to the width of the neckline, like this. I'm going to do is to plot in our sleeve opening. And my sleeve opening, when I took my bicep circumference, I have 16 inches. So 16 divided by 2 is going to give me 8 inches. I'm going to add 1 inch and that's going to give me 9 inches. So I'm going to measure 9 inches from the slope all the way down. So this is my 9 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to plot in my circumference measurement. That is circumference of my bust, waist, and hip. So my bust circumference is 44 inches. And if I divide that by 4, it's going to give me 11 inches. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be adding 4 inches ease. So when you're cutting your kaftan, and it's better for it to be bigger than smaller. Once it's bigger and you want to make it smaller, you can easily do that. But if you start by making it smaller, cannot go back, can't make it bigger. So I will advise, add extra allowances to your dress. And once you've done it and you don't like it, you can always make it smaller. It's safer to do that than cutting it smaller and then you can't make it bigger anymore. My bust circumference is 44 inches. Divided by 4 is going to give me 11 inches. And then I'm going to add 4 inches ease allowance. And that's going to give me 15 inches. So I'm going to measure 15 inches. 15 inches puts me here and I'll mark. And then my waist circumference measurement is 38 inches. And by the time I divide that by 4, it's going to give me 9.5 inches. I will add 4 inches ease allowance. That's 13.5 inches. So I'm going to plot 13.5 inches on my waistline. 13.5 puts me here. The next one is my hip circumference. My hip circumference measurement is 47 inches. By the time I divide that by 4, it's going to give me 11.75 inches. And I'm adding 4 inches ease allowance, which is 15.75. So I'm going to measure 15.75. And that puts me here, and I'll mark. So I will take this same 15.75. I'm going to mark it on the hemline. Okay? So I'm just going to measure 15.75 on the hemline. So 15.75 on my hemline puts me here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect the points. I'm going to draw a straight line from my hip all the way down to my hemline. This is where having a long ruler comes in very handy. So I'm going to connect Don't forget, we haven't added seam allowances yet. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, from my sleeve opening, I'm just going to make a curve like this to join my bust circumference. And then you can use your curve ruler, and then I'm going to connect this point. So from the sleeve, connect to the bust point. From the bust point, connect to the waist. And then from the waist, we'll connect to the hip. Okay? Connect from the sleeve opening to the bust, from the bust to the waist, and then from the waist to the hip, and then from the hip down to the hem. The next thing we're going to do now is to add seam allowances round our pattern. I'm going to be adding 1 inch seam allowance on the side. I'm going to add ½ an inch on the shoulder, and then I'll connect. So I've added my seam allowances. So this is the ½ inch on the shoulder, and then the 1 inch on the side at the bottom as well. So the next thing we're going to do now is to cut out our dress. So this is it. After cutting out, this is my dress. I'm going to notch my waist, my hip, and my bust. And the hemline as well. It will be easier for me to match the front and the back together. This is my bust line. I'll just do a bit of notch so that it's easier to connect them together. I will also notch my hemline. Okay, so this is my dress. So I have my notches. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to create a facing. You can also finish your neckline with bias tape. If you want to know how to make bias tape from scratch, I have a video on this channel. You can check that out. I'll put a link in the description box. You can use bias to finish up your neckline. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using a facing. I'm going to show you how to cut a facing for us to be able to finish the neckline. To cut the facing, all you need to do is take a piece of fabric, fold it into two. Folded side should face you. This is the folded side of my fabric, and then this is the folded side of my dress. So they should match, okay? And then you can just draw out the neckline just to cut and follow the shape of your neckline, shape of your shoulder. You can make yours 2.5 or 3 inches. So I'm going to be making mine 3 inches. So I'm going to stop here. So I'm also going to measure from here 3 inches down as well. And then I'll stop here. And then I'm going to cut out my facing now. I'm following the shape of the neck of my dress, see? And then I'm going to cut the shoulders. Okay, so this is it. And then I'll take this out and just measure 3 inches round. And then I'll just connect. And then I'll cut it out. Okay, so I'll cut a second one as well because we need two, one for the front, one for the back. So now I have my kaftan front and back, and I have my facing, both of them as well. So I have interfaced my facing, both for the front and the back. I just ironed on interfacing on it. I use stay. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to place right side to right side for the facing, and then I'm going to use ½ an inch seam allowance to sew the shoulders. So I'm just going to pin using ½ an inch seam allowance. Also do the same thing for my kaftan shoulders. So we'll sew the shoulders for the kaftan and the shoulders for my facing. After doing that, then we will serge. I'm going to serge the edges and I'm going to serge the shoulders as well before I sew in the side seams. So now I'm going to join the shoulders together using ½ an inch seam allowance. After joining the shoulders, this is what it looks like. See, using ½ an inch seam allowance. So this is our neckline facing. And then this is the shoulders for our dress. I used ½ an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go serge the edges of our shoulders and the hem of my dress before we sew the side seams. So now I'm going to serge the shoulder seam, both for the facing and my dress. And then I will serge the hem of the dress as well. This is my facing. The next thing I need to do now is to sew the side seams of my kaftan dress. So whatever seam allowance you left on your dress is what you're going to use to sew your dress. I will now sew the other side. So now I'm going to sew the neckline. I have pinned my neckline facing to my dress, right side facing right side. As you can see, this is what it looks like. So now I'm going to sew it all round. So I've sewn my neckline facing. So this is what it looks like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to notch all the edges, and then I will understitch. I'll put all the seam allowances towards the facing. I'm going to sew on top here round so that my neckline will lay flat inside, and then we hem, and then we're done with our dress. So after sewing, this is what our dress look like. So I've done the neckline. Okay, so this is the neckline done. I notched just like I said I was going to do, and then I understitched. I'm going to use a hemming glue to hold this down. You can tack it or you can use a hemming glue. I prefer to use hemming glue. I'm going to use hemming glue. I'm going to iron hemming glue all around here so that it lays inside without coming out. You can tack it as well. It's up to you. I've hemmed my sleeves. I've hemmed my dress as well. I've serged the inside of my dress just to give me nice finishing. We're done. The only other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to embellish it. I'm going to be using my stones to decorate my dress. This is not compulsory, but I want to just beautify my kaftan dress. So you can use any accessories of your choice. I'm going to be using these stones just like I said earlier. So I'm just going to arrange them all the way down. So that's all that is left for us to do now. So I'm just going to go and stone it, and then you see what the dress looks like when I'm finished. So this is my kaftan dress. I have embellished the dress with my stones. I stoned the middle and the sleeves as well. These are the sleeves. So I put my stones all the way down to the end of the dress. You can make loads of them, and they are very, very comfortable. You can wear them anywhere. You can see how beautiful it is, and it's so simple to make and very comfortable to wear. Make yours and tag me on Instagram at Remi's Fashion 17. I can't wait to see what you will all come up with. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Take care and God bless.